Welcome to Bitter Reality Brewing. This is the top 10 tips, tricks, recommendations, hacks, suggestions, whatever you want to call them. Don't forget, like, subscribe, keep sharing. It's been great. It's been huge. Definitely appreciate it. If you love beer, we're still doing that survey. Nail that subscribe, make it go gray. Hit me a like. Definitely appreciate it. Whether you're entertained or, it's just a matter of effort. But let's go into number one right away. And I know I'm always sharing beers. Well, this is not this. This is the red rye, which isn't up here anymore. This is the Irish red rye with toasted caraway seeds. My son brought over his last bottle worth in 1 gallon. He had to get some of the Trappist single, and we did a little Trappist video on the tale of two Trappists, which you'll see here in the next day or two. Hilarious. You'll definitely be entertained. Definitely had fun with that video. The beers came out amazing. So, been sipping away at this. If you have an all-in-one, number one is how to pasteurize your beer. And you're going, what? If you want to kill that yeast off because you're going to be back sweetening or whatever you may do, and you put it all in the bottles and you decide you want to bottle your beer, and this is assuming you're bottling your beer, and you want to pasteurize it. I got to give credit. This was to a subscriber. I do not remember. It's been a while, but it was brilliant. Look familiar? I don't care if you're using a Grainfather, if you're using a mash and boil, Brewzilla, I don't care what you're using. You can put all your bottle, I won't say all, but a good portion of the bottles in here. Set your temperature to whatever it needs to be to pasteurize it. Lower it in. Let it sit there for the time or duration, whether it's, I think it's 20 minutes or 10 minutes based on the temp. Let it pasteurize, kill off everything, so the yeast isn't going to eat up any sugars that you've back sweetened or whatever you may have done, especially if you're using like an amaretti, which actually I have one right here, because it's going to add a little sugar and you don't want it to get eaten up with the yeast. You can pasteurize it. It's awesome. And I was like, wow, that's brilliant. I never thought about it. Using the same thing you brewed it in, you can pasteurize your beer. It's just brilliant. So something to be aware of, and you take them out, you put the next probably 15 bottles in there easily, and do the next one. And you probably get all 50 done if you're doing a full 5 gallons in a matter of 3, maybe 4 batches. You just set it in there, leave it in there for a certain time, the set temp, you pull them back out, dry them off, if you want a label, you can put a label on, whatever it be. So pasteurize your beer using the brew system. Just awesome. Very, very impressed. Number 2, before you brew a style you've never brewed, go to your bottle shop, buy a few. I don't care if you have to go to another state, you have to order them in, whatever you need to do, but get a few different breweries, not bottles from the same brewery, different bottles from different breweries of that style beer, and try it before you brew it. See what you like about it, see what you enjoy, see what you don't like, and that way you can kind of home in on that style for how you want it. And remember, I hate coloring in the lines. So here's your lines. You want to go out the lines a little, that's fine. But this would be a great example. Pinkus, world's first organic brewery. They make some good beer, but they have a alt beer, and that's what this is. It's an alt beer. It is on the weak side all the way down. To me, it doesn't taste anything like an alt beer. It is like a super mild ale, almost a California common. This, to me, doesn't taste anything like an alt beer, and that's why you want to get several different samples, because you're going to find what a real of whatever that style really should kind of fall in, because everybody's going to be somewhere near the middle. Some are going to be on the edges, whether it be on the fringe of the high end or the fringe of the low end. Yeah, this is, I'm not trying to bust on this brewery, but it is far from what I'm used to when I hear alt beer. When I hear alt beer, I get excited. An alt beer should be balanced, very malty, very hop. It should be a little bit of everything going on. And that was so light, it was like a California common. It just wasn't my thing. Number 3. Number 3, I've kind of mentioned something similar to this, but number 3, before you start a brewing kit, assuming you're buying a brewing kit with all the little ingredients you need, not only read the instructions from beginning to end so you don't get any last 5-minute surprises, but read it personally. I recommend you read it at least a full day before you actually decide to brew it. Reason being, you might say, oh, hey, it calls for 2 pounds of cornstarch, which are not included. Uh-oh. Yeah, you're going to have to go to your local homebrew shop, or maybe you're going to have to change it up and maybe get some raw sugar or granulated sugar or whatever kind of sugar you decide you're going to use, and you're going to have to go to your local grocery store. You don't want to know that when the water's heating up and you're getting ready to make your wort and everything. You're like, oh crap, I'm like 5 minutes towards the end and it says add 2 pounds of corn sugar and I don't have any. Read your instructions at least a day ahead, and that way you know you don't have any what I call last minute, 5-minute surprises. Some of us who create our own recipe forget about things and go, oop, almost forgot that. Yeah, we all have those 5-minute surprises. Number 4, everyone talks about the word prep, but very few people talk about time management. Time management is huge in brewing. I do it even when I'm shooting videos and I'm brewing, not always, but most of the time when I can think of it and I have the time. But time management, when you're doing the boil, clean up anything related to the mash. When you're doing the, what I call chilling, or you have your jaded Scylla in there and you're chilling it down and everything, clean up everything related to the boil. This will make for a much shorter cleanup time, a much shorter brew day. And when you're finally getting around to, taking your yeast and your wort and you're pitching to the fermenter, you have very little left to clean, but maybe the main system and a few other little items, but it reduces it. So as one thing you're waiting for, you move on, you clean the previous thing. You move on to the next, you clean the previous thing. Anything that's not being used anymore and won't be used again in that brew day, start cleaning it now. That way you don't have to wait until the end of the day. I have done many a times, and I'm just as guilty of waiting to the end of the day. And literally, I'm out there until 10 o'clock at night, and I may have finished at 4 p.m., but I want everything super clean, so it is what it is. But number 5, and I do this from time to time, and I'm kind of a little sketchy. I jump all over the place, but number 5, do inventory from time to time on your supplies, your malts, your yeast, your hops. Put everything that you're going to have available to make a brew in something like Brewfather, Beersmith, or any like program that you use to build your recipes. I'm really bad at deducting from that inventory, so I have to do my inventory probably a little more often than some because I forget to deduct from that inventory. But get your inventory. I go through, it's right easy. I weigh an empty one, I weigh a full one. I know exactly what the difference is after doing a tear, and I know exactly what I have of all my malts, all my hops. I'm aware of how many, what I call my yeast. I just counted as 2 for every yeast that I know I have built up. That way I know when I pull from one, I still have one and I'm all good. But how do you know what you're going to be able to brew if you don't know what your ingredients are? You need to do an inventory from time to time. Number 6, get organized, especially for like or similar items. I promise you this will help. I am all day long forgetting things. It just happens. It's the way it is. I've been that way my whole life. But I'll be like, oh crap, where's this? But you know what? I know it has to do with taps. And over here I go, oh, keg connectors, keg stuff. Oh, it's in one of those 2 boxes. I have everything. It says keg connectors, keg stuff, testing, fermenting, flavoring, water treatment, sugars, bubblers, caps. I have everything grouped in different boxes, and it makes life really easy. I may not remember where I put the item, but I know it's going to be in 1 or maybe 2 based on what the item is. Of those boxes, I open it, oh, there it is, and I grab it. It makes my life so much easier when I'm looking for something and I'm not sure of where it is. Number 7, that leads us right into number 7. Label everything from malts, brewing salts, additives. It doesn't matter, label it. If you look up at some of my stuff up here, especially my brewing salts, you can see I have everything labeled from Epsom salt, canning salt, calcium chloride, yeah, I have more. Yeast nutrient, I got baking soda, gypsum, I've got everything labeled. I can look at it and know exactly what it is right away because it's labeled. Same thing with my malts. Honey malt, 25. So I know as far as, how much darkness it's going to give. I'm not too worried about that, but it is on there. Just label everything. It makes life so much easier when you get organized. Number 8, and this is one that I have to divide into multiple days. Hopefully you don't, but pick a day, either in between brew days or maybe the day after a big brew. Clean everything. I mean, clean everything. Your brew system, your kegging area, your general work area, just break things down if you have to. I cleaned my keezer and I just recently tore out 4-inch shanks and put 3-inch shanks in there. Had everything scrubbed clean, took all the kegs out, put everything in, cleaned the hoses, scrubbed everything. And of course, one of my disconnects literally almost exploded when I put it back on and I had a huge mess, which just sucks because I cleaned it up. But at least I know the majority was clean. So just pick a day, get everything clean, and make sure you don't miss anything. Things you've been setting aside that you haven't had time to get around to cleaning, throw them in, get them clean. I do a big bucket of my PBW, a big bucket of my Star Sand, and I know they say no rinse, but I do a big bucket of nice warm water, and I go from each one and I soak an item, tear it apart, move it over, drop the next parts in. Move it over, and I just keep, it's like an assembly line. And everything gets super clean. I scrub it all out. I put it all back together. I make sure everything's good. And that way I know I'm not going to contaminate or brew 5 gallons of the best beer ever and find out it's got an infection. I see so many pictures of, what is this? And everybody's like, oh, it's infected. Oh, it's infected. Yeah, that's such a waste of time. It's just disheartening. Don't do that. You don't want to do that, I promise you. Number 9, set up a brew day box or bucket. I don't have one of those. I really kind of need one. But I know when I'm getting ready to brew, I get everything assembled just before the video. I know what I need. I have everything. I go grab it from wherever I need. A lot of those things are multi-purpose items that I use for other things. But if you're not doing multi-purpose items and these items are dedicated to brewing, get yourself like your bottling bucket or something like that and just put everything in that bucket or box, whatever you may have. And hey, you know what? My wife told me this weekend I can brew. Boom, I got my box. I'm getting my grains. I'm ready to go. There's no hunting and searching and pecking and looking for little things. You have it. Number 10, store all of your yeast in your fridge at the bottom, the lowest possible point. I don't care if it's a beer fridge or it's your personal fridge. Try to store your yeast at the lowest possible point in your fridge. My 2 drawers in my beer fridge are dedicated for yeast. The reason being is that you want to keep your yeast as close to freezing without freezing as possible. It's going to last longer if you've, like I do yeast starters and I put them back in, I take my mason jars and I dump them into little or mason jars. If you could let them get warm, they're going to start re-fermenting on any sugars left and they're just going to go back. You don't want that. You want it to be literally as close to freezing without freezing. If you're keeping it in the fridge, there are ways of freezing it. We'll go around that some other time. Another video, another time. But as close to freezing as possible. So those bottom drawers, those are premium space when it comes to yeast. My yeast always goes in those bottom drawers. I don't want it anywhere near the top half or anywhere near the top. The top's insane. Keep it towards the very bottom, as close to freezing as possible. If it freezes, you're gonna let it thaw. Hopefully it froze slowly and not quickly. That's where you damage your yeast. But that's it. Top 10 tips, tricks, recommendations, hacks for this week. This is week 22. Don't forget, like, subscribe. Definitely appreciate the sharing. It's been huge. Yeah, if you haven't seen it, it'll be coming out in the next day or two. But the Tale of Two Trappists, it was a hilarious video. So hopefully I'm entertaining on that video. Both of them came out amazing, a little very different in the flavors just from the yeast. And I mean very different. Even the bodies of the beer were very different. So thanks again. Don't forget, like, subscribe, and thank you for joining us here at Bitter Reality Brewing.